Premed Office Hours, episode 166. I'm your moderator for the day, Dr. Ryan Gray, founder of Medical School HQ, co-founder at Mappd, author of the Premed Playbook series of guidebooks, and all around awesome dude, as I like to say.
All around awesome dude, it's true.
As I like to say.
Say so yourself.
If I do say so myself, I read it on the internet. It must be true.
I've read some other things on the internet.
If it was Reddit and Student Doctor Network, those don't count. Joining me today, the best part of my week is hanging out with these people during this hour. Dina Golini, we have former senior admissions officer at Stanford, former assistant director of advising at Brown University's Warren Alpert Medical School as part of their SMP program. Brown, who finally stepped up to the plate and said, paraphrasing, screw you, U.S. News. We're not playing your game anymore.
Woo, love it. That was
just
news
announced
to read
yesterday.
today.
Yeah. Awesome. How you doing, Dina?
I'm doing well. In the middle of this, hurricane-prone Florida, but I'm safe and good.
You are
Thank
safe.
you.
You are more southern Florida, more eastern Florida,
more southern,
if I remember.
So for now, spared. But
you are okay for now.
Yeah.
Although the fun is just beginning. We'll knock on wood and hopefully stay safe all hurricane season. Yeah. Awesome. Well, happy to have you here answering tons of amazing questions. It was funny. I got while I have you here, I got a request for a consultation. So for those of you who don't know, we do free consultations if you're interested potentially in working with us. We talked to lots of parents, we talked to lots of students, and one of the notes came through. They scheduled a call with me. One of the notes came through. We want to speak to that advisor with Brown experience. I'm like, I know who you're talking about.
Thank you.
Yes. It reminds me of that UPS tagline. What can Brown do for you? That's
right. What can Brown do for you?
Yes. I am also experiencing a lot of tell me more about Dina and consultations. Students are just thrilled.
That's so nice to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Also
business.
Joining me, that other voice you hear, Rachel Grubbs, co-founder at Mappd, MCAT, and Premed expert for 20 or so years, but who's counting? What's going on, Rachel?
I'm good. I'm really well. I'm safe and dry. I'm in the middle of the country where the weather is usually not that wild. I'm very excited about Mapcon. You guys can already see it on the ticker, but that's the main thing that's top of mind for me this week, probably every day for the next 46 days or however long it is we have until the event. It's going to be amazing. So I hope to see many of you. Sometimes when I get on those consultations, students or parents will say, well, I feel like I know you because I see you so often. I think, great. Now give me a chance to know you back. Come meet me in person in Baltimore.
Come hang out. Yeah. It's going to be fun. We're going to have tons of fun. MappdCon.com. We still have tickets. The room block was extended for a few weeks. So you still have an opportunity to come hang out, get a hotel room. And really for me, the benefit of conferences, and I just came back from one, is the networking. It's hanging out with people, meeting new friends. I have lots of new contacts in my phone for people that I met that are just friends for now, but you never know where those connections may lead in the future. And for you all as pre-med students, your opportunities to network with medical schools. If you go to our exhibitor page right now, you will see a long list of medical schools, of some podiatric schools, some pharmacy schools. It's not just pre-med, but you may be thinking of some other career fields as well. And you have an opportunity to go and talk to those people, to be recruited by those schools. Like, when in this life do you get the opportunity to be like a professional athlete? Be like, hey, recruit me, right? Obviously, you don't want to be that arrogant walking up to them, but you have those conversations. They are there to meet you, to understand who you are, for them to answer your hopefully very specific, very pointed questions because you've done some research on each of those schools. So MappdCon.com. Come hang out.
And I think we'll do a little bit more about Mapcon later, a chance to give away some tickets. So we'll talk about it again in a bit.
Yes.
Now that I think about it, Ryan, I met you at a conference.
You did. This is where it all comes back to conferences and connections, right? I forget how I met Seth. I must have met him at a conference. We reached out, we connected, a mutual friend.
Seth and I co-wrote a book chapter together, and he introduced me to you at a conference, and that's it.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Cool. There you go. All
right. Ready for some questions?
Yeah.
Let's do it. For those on Instagram, go over to YouTube, premed.tv. You can ask your questions there, and we'll put them up. Andrew, I'm freaking out right now. Or nurse, one of the others. he could have mistyped. Andrew might have said, "I'm a freaking out nurse," or "I'm freaking out right now." Let's go with right now. I've submitted my AMCAS and secondaries within a week of receiving them, but one of my letter writers still hasn't submitted their letter. What should I do? So, little backstory, and then Dina, I would love your thoughts. So, for Andrew, for anyone else watching, wondering like, why is that a problem? So, for most medical schools in this country, in the U.S., we work on rolling admissions. So, typically, earlier is better, but earlier also means complete. And so complete means a verified primary application, whether it's AMCAS, ACOMAS, or TMD-SAS. It means your secondaries are returned, assuming the school has secondaries. Some schools just want money. That's part of the game. But also MCAT score and letters of recommendations are typically considered complete. You need those in. And so Dina, Andrew has a letter writer. It is nearing the end of August, almost September. That letter writer is still holding on to a letter. What is Andrew to do here?
Well, I think Andrew put a follow-up statement in here that for clarification, this was the beginning of August. So, Andrew, it all depends on, do you need that letter to count as one of your required letters, right? So every school has different letter requirements. So if a school requires 2 science professors and 1 additional letter, and that's all you have, then your application is going to be incomplete until they receive it. But if this was an additional letter, like if a school requires 3, but you can send up to 6, and this was maybe the 5th one, then technically, you could remove that letter writer from on the AMCAS side for that particular school, so that it appears on the school end that you fulfill the letter requirement and everything is in. But if you're really freaking out, it sounds to me like this is a letter that you needed. And in that case, hopefully you communicated with the letter writer and you've, reached out to them and emailed and are called and just expressed the time sensitivity of getting that letter. Because if it's needed, like Dr. Gray said, your application is kind of sitting in limbo on the admission side, incomplete, because whatever you tell schools that you are sending and they should be receiving, if they haven't received it, it's incomplete and it can't be reviewed until it's full in its entirety.
Yeah, I like that first clarification right away is, do you need it, right?
Do you need it?
Yeah. I'd assume if Andrew's freaking out, it's hard. It's one of the hardest parts of this process, which is why at Mappd, our software platform, we created my LORs so that you can start collecting letters. We generally say the letter should be dated the year that you apply. So you can start collecting letters starting in January of the year that you're going to apply, so that we're not in this situation. Yes, it costs a little bit of money, but would you rather pay $90 for a year of Mappd access, which gives you my LORs? Or would you rather be here at the end of August freaking out going, my application is sitting on someone's desk just in purgatory, basically, because the school isn't looking at it. So my LORs right there. So go check it out. It allows you to request letters. It allows you to give your letter writers access to your Mappd account so they can kind of see what's going on. More visual way of kind of seeing your resume, if you want to think of it that way. There's one caveat to my LORs is we can't send letters to TMD-SAS. TMD-SAS, Texas has some arcane laws that just really preclude us from playing along with them for a while. So, oh well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew.
Good luck, Andrew.
Yeah.
TBRR16. What is the best free resource to use to study for the MCAT? I'll give you 2 free resources, and Rachel, I'd love to hear if you have any others. The first best free resource is the MCAT podcast, which is both audio and we have a YouTube counterpart, so you can see what's going on in terms of questions that we're covering. I do that. The MCAT podcast is sponsored by Blueprint MCAT. I do that with our partners over at Blueprint MCAT. The other free resource is Blueprint MCAT's free account. So you get a free account over there. You get access to their study planner tool. You get access to a half-length diagnostic, a free full-length exam, a flashcard platform, a ton of amazing analytics. They've really upped their game with the platform that you use to take their tests, with lots of fun, cool tools to understand where you're struggling and where improvements can be made. So Blueprint MCAT, our fun partners.
Yeah, well, I definitely second Blueprint MCAT. Oops, sorry, Sandy, I'm chiming in on MCAT. I'll come right back to Trey. You want to take that one down? Definitely Blueprint MCAT, their free packet. Also, all of the major MCAT prep companies have at least something free. Sometimes it's a free half-length diagnostic. Sometimes it's a free full length. And if you're really on a budget, you could go to one company. Blueprint, for example, sells, I think, bundles of like 3, 5, and 9. You get one free, and then there's 10 total. But you could also just cobble together free exams from as many places as possible. The AAMC MCAT materials are always the best source, but those aren't free unless you're on FAP, the Fee Assistance Program. But you can get a lot of practice tests by going to multiple sources. The other one I'll mention that is still around for now is Con, right? For some of you may know that there's been threats of Con coming and going for several years. The Premed community, have strongly lobbied to keep it around. So the solution for the last few years has been, well, we'll leave it open, but we're not updating it. But especially if you need content help, right? I mean, keeping in mind that the MCAT needs to have a lot of practice, a lot of drilling, a lot of critical thinking. But if you need content review help, Con is a great way to get yourself refreshed on the sciences.
Yep. Trey. So my lab that I work for full-time just got notified that we will be published soon. Do you think it's too early to send update letters? Dina is vigorously shaking her head. What's the saying? Don't count your chickens before they're hatched? Is that what you're shaking your head for, Dina?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's a little too early. Like I say this, I feel like I say this every time we have pre-med office hours. There's so much going on behind the scenes. Interview season is just starting, really. So, most likely, most people have not even met for their first admissions committee meeting. If their first interview day is like in September, there's so much going on. So I think that a safe time, if a school will allow for an update letter, that's the other thing. You need to, check all the schools that you applied to and make sure that they do allow update letters, because some don't. But if they do, a safe time would be to send it in like end of October, beginning of November, definitely by Thanksgiving. But October, the earliest. I think right now is a little too early, because with the rolling admissions and the influx of applications, like that traffic jam of all the applications getting received at once, really in August, your application could just be like sitting there with thousands and just waiting to get read. And it's just, it's too much. It's too much. But I love the enthusiasm. But you don't want to annoy anyone.
Yeah.
I talked to someone towards the end of this cycle, the one where students have started med school this summer, who was asking me about doing updates, and I was giving him some of the typical cautions we give. Can you keep it short and concrete? Is it substantial? Is this the first time you're communicating? And it came out that he'd been reaching out to the office about once a week all winter and spring.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Guys, look at Dina's face, right? Like she's shocked, right? And not in a good way. And this poor fellow, like he was thinking, well, at work, I'm always told when in doubt, err on the side of over communication. I'm just bringing my work skills to the application. What he wasn't thinking is, well, there's 3 of them and 8,000 of us. And so maybe I'm taking up an undue amount of bandwidth for this team, and my heart broke for him. So be ye not so eager.
Who should I have read my personal statement before I submit my med school application? Sorry.
What's going on?
I just was like, Dina can read it.
Oh. Yes.
So there are a few ways to go down this route. If you're at a school that has a pre-health office, your pre-health advisor at your office should ideally read it. As part of my Premed Playbook Guide to the Medical School personal statement, I also have a download that you can get that's basically like a checklist that you can give to someone who may be less familiar with the process and give them some ideas on how to give you feedback on your personal statement. And then there are people like Dina. We, as a company, Medical School HQ, we do one-on-one advising with students, and that includes reading essays. Dina, what's your favorite part about reading personal statements and giving that feedback?
Oh, I essays, personal statements, always my favorite part of any application process, because I love the stories. But I mean, just from reading so many applications, it's so repetitive on the admission side that I love when, a student will bring a personal statement to me and say, like, what do you think? And I start reading it and I'm like, nope. Stop right there. Need to rephrase. And I love finding like that little gem within the personal statement. And I'm like, that's your story right there. That one sentence, like you got to revamp the whole thing. That's your story. That's what's going, to tell medical school admissions, what your journey has been like. And sometimes I think when you're writing throughout this process, you need somebody to say to you, this is really what med schools are looking for, or this, is just a good piece of writing. I will say, like, sometimes it's difficult to get help from like career services at your college. I would try to stay away from that. I've had a lot of students in the past that have not had much luck because they're not necessarily trained on medical school admissions. They might be, trained to help you write, like in terms of like writing standards and a narrative. But you need to really have somebody look at it with a lens from an admission side.
Well said.
Yep.
Thanks.
Stefani, watching for MSHQ for the last 4 years. Crappy stats, but experience and stories like a MF. Just got my first interview invite. Congrats, Stefani.
Congrats.
Like a boss. Do it. And we just mentioned we do one-on-one personal statement editing, essay editing. We also do one-on-one interview prep. So if that's something you're interested in, let us know.
Congrats, Stephanie.
Bernadette, would it be held against me if I worked in a research lab for 1 year and gained about 800 hours, but did not have any publications or posters? I don't know where this myth comes from, or if it's just a general fear that pre-med students have of, if I don't have a publication, if I don't have a poster, then my time is wasted. Dina, where does this come from?
The worry train.
All aboard.
All aboard the worry train. I mean, you have 800 hours in a research lab, which is amazing. You've learned how to research. Like, that tells me that you know what the research process entails, right? You know what scientific inquiry entails. You have the skills. It's okay if you don't have a publication or a poster. I think that there's so much pressure for that. You know, I think students compare themselves against other students, but no, that won't be held against you at all. The worry train is a real thing.
Fluffy Cookie. How you doing, my friend? This is the confusing one with the Cowboy Star and the Baltimore Raven. But anyway, I am a full-time student, and I'm working 2 full days. I almost have 1,000 patient hours. I'm working volunteer for 5 hours every week, but I do not have any shadowing. Will it affect my application? Rachel, we had a big workshop last night with parents of pre-meds, and this question came up all the time. We're kind of talking about the timeline, shadowing versus clinical. It could matter, could make a huge difference for the student, right?
Yeah. So Fluffy, if I may call you so. Yeah, I think what you have to think about is that the point of shadowing, the point of patient care experience is exploring the career of medicine from multiple angles, right? So when you're getting, you said you have 1,000 patient hours. So when you're getting that hands-on patient care, you're learning a lot about just what it means to get clinical experience, to have hands-on patient care. Some days are great days. Some days are days that are sad or maybe yucky or stressful. Maybe the patient's not the most pleasant person. Maybe they're lovely and their parents or their spouse is super stressed out and they're taking it on you. Like, that's kind of the point of it, right? Is to do the day in and day out and make sure that you are signed on for it. Shadowing has a similar but different purpose. I think, Ryan, you were saying there was a study recently where interns reported how much time they spent actually at the patient bedside, and it was something like 11%. Yeah. Right. And also there are studies that show that when physicians report burnout, they usually cite admin, not patients, as their burnout. So part of the point of shadowing is to observe a physician go through their whole day, including all the parts of the day that aren't patient care. So what it means to be on the phone with insurance, sometimes quick and painless calls, sometimes hours long and arguing. What it means to do your own charting if you don't have a scribe. What happens now that with these electronic portals, like for me as a patient, that feels like the height of convenience. And then my friends who are physicians are like, don't use it too much. We're not allowed to go home until the box is empty. There's all this admin work. And so it is possible that as part of your patient hours, you're working very closely with the physician and you are doing some kind of unofficial shadowing and seeing that. But you might not be seeing any. So that's where shadowing matters, is are you getting exposure to the unique parts of being a physician, especially here in the US, because we have a very complex medical system, right? We don't have single payer. We don't have free healthcare for all. So have you seen what all that looks like and understanding it before you embark on the career? So only you know. Sometimes I find that when I dig deeper with patient care, people will say, well, I observe that stuff all the time. And I'm like, well, then maybe your answer is to take your 1,000 patient hours and call it 900 patient hours and 100 shadowing, right? You can't double dip, but you could divide. Or maybe you need to ask one of the physicians at your clinical job, can I come back a few days when I'm not on shift and just observe you for the whole day? Just to be sure you really get pure shadowing.
Yep. And just to clarify, we do have single payer system in this country. It's called Medicare and Medicaid.
We don't have universal single payer.
We also have socialized healthcare in this country. It's called the VA system.
Yes.
So it's interesting. I have these conversations with students for mock interview stuff, typically with application academy students. And we talk about the Canadian system. We talk about the UK system and how different they are. And like, we actually have all of them in this country. But yes, the majority of our patients are in our wackadoodle private insurance world.
Yeah, Ryan's always very good at correcting me when I get to black or white in my verbiage, right? We do not have universal single payer, is what I meant to say. Sandy, you got another comment for us?
Miss a Blue 676792. Hello, everyone. Dr. Ray, would you recommend the military route or not? How was your experience? So I'll give just a 2-minute story. Let me tell you the story. So I did HBSP through the Air Force to pay for med school. I chose it for the wrong reasons. I wanted free medical school and no debt. But I ended up loving the military, even though the match process was very different for me because I had to go through the military match and the regular match at the same time, something I didn't really know a lot about. And so my goal of being an orthopedic surgeon, the Air Force was like, yeah, no, very different in the military world. I think they only had room for 5 orthopedic surgeons both of the years that I applied. So I applied my 4th year of medical school just like normal. I also applied during my internship year and was denied twice. Fun fact, they did call me like 3 days after the match and said, hey, if you can get a spot, you can go to ortho. My assumption is the way that the military does it is they rank everyone just by points. And I was probably the first one out of the top 5. And one of the 5 that they said yes to probably didn't match. And so they were like, hey, Ryan, if you can get it. Unfortunately, ortho is one that fills all of their spots. So not much I could do there. I loved the military. You have to be okay with living apart from a spouse, living apart from family, from friends. You 1000% have to be okay with deploying. It's the number one job of someone in the military is always being ready to deploy. You have to be okay with kind of where the world order is right now with Russia and Ukraine and the fact that NATO countries are surrounding Ukraine and we may be in World War III pretty soon. So you have to be okay with all of that. You have to be okay with what the military is. And so, yeah, lots of stuff there. There are pros and cons. You have to understand all of that. Nick, I'm planning on taking the MCAT August 2024, so I'll register in February 2024. When do I need to apply for FAP to get the reduced fees and free materials? Rachel, the FAP is something that I've never done a ton of research in. I always just tell students to go to the AAMC website and figure it out. Do you know anything about FAP and MCAT timing?
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head. I would also want to check. I sometimes get confused about it. Does usually last for a cycle and a half. I think if you did it now, it might be too soon because we're still in the current testing cycle. So yeah, please go to the AAMC FAP website. You do have it right in terms of registration because typically in October, they open up winter, spring test dates. And then in February, they typically open up late spring, summer dates. So you have that timeline right. And you will need your FAP before you register for the MCAT. So it's going to be coming up pretty soon. I just don't know if we're there just yet. So that's as much as I can do off the top of my head. But I will say, I mean, I know the AAMC website can be kind of like a labyrinth. But if you Google AAMC FAP, that page is pretty great. So once you land there, it should have everything you need. Good luck, Nick.
John, it's a fun avatar. Is that an acorn or a person? I don't know. During one-on-one open file interviews, is it typical for interviewers to ask MMI questions, i.e. ethical dilemmas? I know we should be prepared for any question, but want to prepare effectively. Dina, it's interesting, right? One-on-one traditional interviews. To me, MMI style is situational judgment, right? And ethical questions don't have to be a situational judgment, but some of that thought process may be similar. What are your thoughts here for John?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the bottom line is be prepared for anything. Be prepared to answer any kind of situational judgment question, ethical question. I haven't seen any like really big situational judgment type questions in open file one-on-one interviews, but I have seen more like ethical questions, like what does professionalism mean to you? What does integrity mean to you? Tell me a time where you had to make an ethical decision that somebody else didn't agree with, those types of questions. So I think just being prepared to answer anything is the way to go. You just don't know. Try to, do as much like research as you can, I guess. Maybe with friends that interviewed with the same school, or just utilize the resources on the school's website to see if they give you any tips, but just be prepared. And one question could lead to another in a one-on-one interview, so you just never know what they're going to ask you. And practice with someone. That's where our mock interviews would really come into play, because just practicing that back and forth with someone can make you more prepared for any type of question you would be asked.
Practice, practice, practice.
Practice, practice.
Rakina 2, senior BA bio with minor in chemistry. I did a summer research on cancer, and I just got a position as an intern at my university in DNA regulation. Just quit my scribe job that I had for 1 year. Good decision? Impossible to answer.
Where's your it depends sign?
It depends.
Yeah. It
Yes.
depends.
It depends. Yeah. I don't know. Good decision for what? Good decision for your mental well-being. Good decision for your time management. Good decision for applications. Impossible to answer.
Yeah. I'm always bewildered by these questions. Like, yeah, we don't know you. I don't know what makes it good for you. Sorry, friend.
Jonathan. A few schools that I applied to have autobiography type secondaries that ask me not to reiterate my personal statement. How would y'all approach this? This is an interesting question, right? We do a lot of secondary work in Application Academy, Rachel. And I know UCSD is one that has this type of secondary. I think UCF I actually think it's their Premed office at UCF that has kind of an autobiography thing that they ask. Yeah. But I think students are reading into a little bit too much, or not. Like, right. It's an autobiography. We all know what an autobiography is. Tell your story.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, Jonathan, the way you're writing this says to me, you're in your secondary, so you've already submitted your personal statement, and I don't know what's in it, but I hope that you did not make the classic error of making your personal statement an autobiography, because that wasn't the personal statement prompt. It wasn't tell me your life story. It was tell me why medicine. Why do you want to go to medical school? Why do you want to be a physician? And so you may be cherry picking a few key moments from your life. It is very common to have a seed that is from childhood or adolescence. You might talk about key moments from college, or your 20s, or your adult life where you were getting, exposure to the career of medicine. But the personal statement isn't an autobiography. So hopefully there's not that much overlap. Now, if you're going, oh no, that's not what I did. I wrote my life story. Okay, so now you're in it. What are you going to do, right? You still got to write something for this prompt. I think you're just going to have to figure out a different angle. So they've asked you not to reiterate your personal statement, so find some different parts to share. I mean, the personal statement's only 5,000 characters. You surely did not have, or 5,300, depending on where you're applying. You surely did not have enough time to get your whole life. So you just may have to kind of go back to, if you and I were sitting down at a coffee shop, if someone had said, hey, Jonathan and Rachel, I think you guys would get on like a house on fire. You'd be great friends. And you're just introducing yourself to me. What are you going to say? Are you going to talk about your parents, your siblings, your pets? Are you going to talk about where you grew up? Are you going to talk about hobbies, your education? It might be any of those things. It might be none of those things. What are the things you want the admissions officers to know about you? If you're really stuck, I find another great tip is go ask someone who really loves you. Like if your best friend or your sister or your mother or someone is talking about you to someone who doesn't know you, what would they say to sum up your life? Right? Because sometimes you have some pretty amazing qualities, all of us, that we forget we have. And it takes someone who loves us to remind us, like, no, actually, you can talk about those things without bragging because you can just state them, right? And this doesn't have to be a brag essay, but share your story.
Sonia, can you go to NonTrad Night at Mapcon if you are only 1 year removed from undergrad but plan to apply after 3 gap years? You can be anyone and everything for NonTrad Night. Yeah, it's a little confusing how we did tickets. And so when you get a ticket to MapsCon, you are welcome to come to NonTrad Night. Everyone is welcome. It'll just be a fun gathering of everyone. And yes, a lot of the speakers that we'll have that night are non-traditional students sharing kind of their stories. We have some awesome people that are going to be there. But you can, if you want to come and hang out, you may. Christian, I am in a fraternity along with other clubs on campus. I'm getting mixed responses about including my participation in my fraternity on my application due to stereotypes. Thoughts? Dina, this is always a common question with fraternities and sororities, of that stereotype of the drunk college kid on campus shirking their responsibilities to party. But I've seen some very powerful experiences that students have as part of their Greek life, where they do a ton of amazing things out in the community or leadership stuff. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree with you. I've seen a lot of participation in sororities and fraternities where there's a lot of philanthropic work going on and a lot of community work. I think that things have changed a lot in terms of that since when I was in college and in a sorority. Definitely didn't do as much of the good work that's being done today. So I think it just depends what you're planning on including. If you, you were in charge of, I don't know, community involvement and community engagement, and you held a leadership role and you organized, different types of drives, or you organized work in, food shelters, and you were really instrumental in, generating funds and just helping people in the community, then I think that that's great. If you were, as opposed to being in charge of like theme night for a mixer, not so much. So I think it just depends. But if it garnered meaningful work, then it's okay to definitely include it.
Yeah, and I think the same can be said for any activity, right? If there's nothing impactful, if you were just kind of a lump on a log in a situation, but it was a clinical situation or a hospital-based situation, if you didn't do anything, it's not an impactful essay to include either.
Mm-hmm.
Tigris and Euphrates. Is it late submitting the primary application now? So, Rachel, it is August 30th.
Yeah.
What's tomorrow? I forget if August has 31 days. It
31.
does. Tomorrow is the end
31
of August. I'm 43. I don't know my months or anything. It's clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. I'm gonna be candid. It's late. Is it too late? We can discuss, right? But it's late. I'm just not gonna. I'm sorry if you didn't know, right? This is one of the big issues with the medical school admissions process, that, a lot of times what we have is experience with collegiate that starts in the fall and goes sometimes into January. Now you're in a cycle that runs May to April. And because interviews are a required part of the process instead of, with college where that tends to be more rare, certain schools, and even then sometimes interviews are optional. The process takes a long time. And what we've seen is that the people who have the best chances are people who apply in May, June, July, maybe early August. That said, I have seen other people apply in late August, September, even October, and get in. It is not common. It is possible. So I think the calculus you have to do here, and we don't have time to do your whole life story, is strongly assess your application. Because if you have amazing stats and amazing stories, and you just happen to be behind on your timeline, that's going to be a better chance for you than if you already have things you're feeling uncertain about, right? If you're short on clinical or your GPA is medium but not great, those are reasons that you may want to think about, what can I do between now and May to be in amazing shape to be a very early applicant next cycle? But it's ultimately your time, your money, and your chances. And the only way you have a zero chance is if you don't apply. So I tend to advise conservatively. I tend to say, when in doubt, take a beat, wait to next year. But that's because I tend to think about, I personally wouldn't want to spend the thousands of dollars to apply without putting my best foot forward. But it might be that for you, I mean, I don't know your situation. Maybe you have more money than you do time, right? So maybe it's worth the risk to do it this year, right? And just only you can decide.
The good news is this late in the game, verification is a little bit faster. So instead of the kind of 4 to 6 weeks during the peak of application season, we're down probably in the 3-week range now. And then it's getting less and less as the cycle goes on. So yeah, your application probably won't be complete until the end of September, if not a little bit into October.
Mm-hmm. And some schools have deadlines for October, November. So that's a quick turnaround for secondaries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possible, not probable.
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, how is the best way you guys recommend a pre-med to find shadowing if they have a part-time job? Yeah, shadowing is the bane of every pre-med's existence. You have any secret thoughts here, Dina, of how a student can go about finding shadowing?
Well, Rachel is the expert at this, but I will take a stab at. She always has the best answers for this question. We get it a lot. So first of all, tap into who you know best, right? Everybody has their own physicians. Contact them and ask if they would offer any shadowing opportunities, or maybe they can connect you to somebody that you could shadow. That's number one. Number two, say yes to any opportunities. Like if local hospitals are looking for volunteers and they send that out to, your undergrad institution, or you just, find this opportunity, you might think it isn't tied. Let's say you're pushing patients around as a volunteer. One thing can lead to another. You may really find a mentor who's a physician who says, hey, you can shadow me anytime. So always say yes. The other thing is, look at your local hospitals. I had this conversation yesterday with a student I was working with, and we went on the local hospital system for the state that he lived in. And sure enough, they had maybe 6 different ways that undergrad students could volunteer, and some of them had built-in shadowing. So definitely utilize any information that your hospital systems can put out, and ask other students, ask other pre-meds that who may be in some of your classes who are going through the same process, and maybe they can connect you with somebody as well. Network, right?
Donald asks, thoughts on being a patient experience coordinator in the ED? I have no idea what that is. Right? The title doesn't tell us what you're doing. So I have no idea, Donald. Give us a little bit more details on what specifically you're doing and what you're hoping to get out of it, to give us a little bit more context on whether it's good or bad. Dane asks, I have no clinical research experience, but I did NSG research, whatever that is, both undergrad and grad, and was a research advisor to students when I taught in the college. These are all outside the US. Your thoughts? Thanks. Right. So there's often a lot of confusion. We had the question earlier of I have 800 hours of research, but I don't have any presentations or posters or publications. So is it wasted? Or this question, I have lots of research and I was a research advisor, but it's not clinical.
Right.
Is it wasted? Thoughts here for Dane?
Yeah, so I just did a quick Google. I think NSG research might mean nursing research, but I'm not sure. That's just the first hit I got when I Googled it. So, Dane, I think earlier, if you were here, Dina was speaking to the importance of scientific inquiry, right? The value in doing research before med school is to learn how research works, to strengthen your scientific inquiry skills, right? It's I see sometimes these research essays that are about, I did Western blot. Like, I'm just not really that interested in that granular of a detail. I want to know how it impacted your brain, not just like your skill set. And research plays a varying role in med school admissions here in the US, because there are some schools that are really looking for pre-med students who already have substantial research. But then there are many med schools that want you to do research as part of your med student experience. And it will matter a lot for when you match into residency, but it doesn't actually play that big of a role in the admissions. And it just, varies school to school. And so it sounds to me like you have substantial research experience. When we talk about getting clinical experience, that is not necessarily related to research. That's what we're talking, when we say clinical, we mean hands-on patient care experience. So, again, I'm simplifying for the sake of a shortish answer, but I expect that you are getting clinical in the sense of hands-on patient care experience. I expect that you're getting shadowing, which is confusingly sometimes called clinical observation, where you're observing the day in the life of a physician. And then depending on where you want to apply, you may need substantial research, but it sounds like you have that. So my thoughts are you're probably fine, but just make sure, now I'm going to use the word research one more time, make sure you are doing your research when you're choosing the school list where you intend to apply, especially because it sounds like you might be international. Find out how much it matters, because there are going to be some schools that see it as a bonus and some schools that require it. And so you'll just want to do a little deeper digging specific to your target med schools.
Yeah. Boom TV. Hello, all. Would a medical laboratory science job count as clinical experience? MLS jobs, not to be confused with Major League Soccer, occasionally help with blood draws, but most of their time is spent in the hospital lab running specimens. Yes. So as far as I know, medical laboratory science is a lab job. You are spinning down blood samples that get sent to you from the phlebotomist and would not be considered clinical experience. It's cool experience, but not clinical. Yeah. So unless you have some hybrid job, as Boone is kind of suggesting here, that there sometimes is opportunities to do the blood draws or to help with the blood draws, helping maybe less so. But if you're like a hybrid MLS and phlebotomist, then that would count. Very similar to pharmacy technicians who are also doing a lot of vaccines these days.
Yeah, might be a hybrid.6should we take a pause here and talk a little bit about MappdCon again?
MapdCon.com, October 6th through 8th. If you can join us and potentially would like a free ticket, again, October 6th through 8th in Baltimore, Maryland, a beautiful Inner Harbor. If the Orioles continue to do well like they are doing now and they get a first round bye, they will be playing right next door. We will be able to see the inside the stadium from where all the exhibit tables will be at the hotel. It will be exciting. Let us know why you are interested in coming and hanging out and meeting all of the representatives from the schools that are going to be there, and the test prep companies and the post-bac programs. Rachel is scrolling through the list of our exhibitors. You can see some SMP programs, some test prep companies. We have the U.S. Army is going to have a 20 by 20 foot tent there with some sim dolls, which is fantastic. We have Salus, which is PA and pharmacy and all kinds of fun, amazing stuff. We have some pharmacy schools, lots of osteopathic schools. We have some allopathic medical schools, podiatric medicine schools, all kinds of amazing schools, and some international schools as well.
Mm-hmm.
So come hang out. If you would like to potentially win a free ticket, let us know in the comments on YouTube right now why you are interested in coming, and we'll share that in a second. Let's try to answer one more question, maybe. Colleen, the majority of my experiences had to be paid, mostly clinical. Wonderful. Let's just stop there. Colleen is leading this question to be, that is a bad thing. I have much less volunteer and shadowing experience. Is this something I can reasonably include? And what else do you want us to know? So Dina, there's lots of confusion around what is a good experience, and students assume or they hear that it doesn't really count if you're getting paid for it, right? It's like, go tell a nurse who now wants to be a doctor, hey, your 8 years of being paid as a nurse, that's useless. Go get some scribing experience. Oh wait, that's paid too. Go do some volunteer hospice experience. Let's help Colleen breathe a little bit easier while also answering the shadowing part. I think is maybe a little bit more important.
I'm reading, I think there was another comment in here from Colleen. Okay, so yeah, is it a red flag if I have drawn blood or provided inarticulate injections without a license?
No, it's fine.
Okay, but under physician's, yeah, if Dr. Ray says it's fine, then it's fine. Okay, so yeah, it's okay if you get paid for clinical experience. It's fine. It's still clinical experience, right? There are plenty of applicants who are medical assistants and get paid for it, but they are getting direct clinical experience with a patient. And in terms of the second part of your question, which disappeared, let's see.
I think here. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to help.
There you go. Is it something I can reasonably include in the what else do you want us to know? I think I'd need more context. Like in the what else do you want us to know, would you focus on, I don't have a lot of volunteer and shadowing because I have a paid clinical job? I'm not sure if that's the right platform for that. I think what else do you want us to know is what else do you want us to know that you did not include anywhere else in your application that can help support your candidacy?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right.
Gabrielle, I am most excited for the careers breakout session. Gabrielle's looking at our schedule and seeing what sessions are going on. We have lots of sessions, lots of workshops, and our amazing exhibit hall to figure out what specialties I may be interested in and exploring Baltimore. Awesome. That's a great reason to come to MappdCon. Who else? Rachel, I'm a NonTrad in DC, right down the road, and would love a chance to get to network with admins and schools at MappdCon. I would love to be more prepared when it comes to applying next cycle. Also, Rachel Van Valkenburg. That's a fantastic name.
Good Dutch heritage there.
She must be related to Elsa and Anna from Frozen.
I think they're Norwegian, aren't they?
I don't know. It's just a cool name up there. Jonathan. I would love to meet other non-trads and see some of you all in person. You've helped me a ton in my non-trad journey. Yes. So again, we have our NonTrad Night Friday. We have some non-trad sessions Saturday as well, if not into Sunday too. Lots of non-trad stuff because that's we love non-trads. And so we would love to have you there, Jonathan. Reminds me of Joey Swole from TikTok. Jonathan. It's like a workout persona.
Jonathan did clarify, because I know sometimes people only address Dr. Gray. He did clarify U equals all of the MAP team. So thank you, Jonathan.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for not caring about me. That's wonderful. Just kidding. Awesome. Who else? Do we have anyone else?
Looks like
we had
that came in today.
3 fantastic ones. I think we can give away 3 tickets today.
Yeah.
Jonathan and Gabrielle and Van Valkenburg. I forget Van Valkenburg's first name. I will never forget that last name, though.
Oh, it's a fellow Rachel.
Oh, it is a Rachel. All right. Finn, I have a phone interview tomorrow. I was wondering if you have any broad advice for preparing for it. Just real quick, for those 3 people, and then I guess we'll answer this. Dina, I know you have to jump, so you can jump whenever you need to.
Okay. Thank you.
Make sure you leave your window open for our upload.
Gotcha. Got it.
Thanks, Dina. For those 3 people, email info@mappd.com, info@mappd.com, and say, hey, I was just featured on Premed Office Hours and won a free ticket. We'll get you set up. And then last question here, Finn, I have a phone interview tomorrow. I was wondering if you have any broad advice for preparing for it. The interview isn't related to the school's academics, but my own attributes. A phone interview. My assumption is this is, it's Western Michigan. They're the only school that I know of that does phone interviews, which is interesting. Rachel, thoughts for Finn husband here?
My simple answer is treat it like any other interview. Even though you're going to be on the phone, consider wearing interview apparel. I do find, I mean, I'm someone who works in her PJs, right? I don't think you have to be dressed up to work hard, but I think for something where you're in presentation mode, your apparel may help you, sit up a little straighter and be a little bit more kind of on your game. And yeah, I mean, that's it. Typically the interviews aren't related to school's academics. They're related to attributes, right? Like, I mean, you've said that, so I don't know if you have some special insight you're getting at, but typically by the time you get to an interview, it means they read the stuff on paper and they want to get to know you better. They're trying to picture you. You seem like you're qualified to be a physician. Now they want to know, are you going to be a good fit at this school? Why are you interested in the school? What are you going to bring to the community? So, do some practice questions. The day before is not too late. Don't beat yourself up too hard. Don't stay up too late. It's more important that you're rested and fed. But if you still have the afternoon and the early evening, just literally practice moving your mouth out loud. Get yourself comfortable answering questions on the fly. And remember to relax and have a coffee shop conversation, right? Even though you're on the phone, you should not be using scripts. I would even avoid cheat sheets. You'll think that you're being subtle, but they'll hear the long pauses because you're reading. Just, do some practice and then be ready to talk like a normal person. And good luck. Let us know how it goes.
That's awesome. Thanks, Finn. Thank you, everyone, for your amazing questions. We are here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Come hang out with us at MappdCon October 6th through 8th in Baltimore, Maryland, in the beautiful Inner Harbor. Yeah. We are excited to see you. We are excited to help you connect with medical schools or podiatric schools, pharmacy schools, PA schools, wherever we can connect you. It is a pre-health conference, not specifically pre-med, but obviously pre-med is the biggest of them all. MappdCon, presented by our friends at Blueprint MCAT. We couldn't have done it without them. So come hang out. Tickets are still available. Rooms are still available. Yeah, it'll be fun. Rachel, any parting words of wisdom?
Take care of yourselves. Don't forget to drink water.
Yes. Get some good sleep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.